The footage was found inside a small black duffel bag, left on the back seat of a 2008 Toyota parked behind a supermarket in North Jersey. The bag contained 4 cans of spray paint, a flashlight with dying batteries, and a GoPro camera with half a charge left. The last video file was dated the 12th of March 2018, time-stamped 11:47 p.m. I was the one holding the camera for most of that night. My name doesn't really matter. I've told this story enough times that it no longer feels like mine. But for the record, I was there with Yuri, Frank, and Freddie at the old Maple Hill Middle School, a building that had been empty since 1999. The place stood on the edge of a dead-end road, half swallowed by weeds and trees that had grown through the cracked asphalt. All the windows on the first floor were covered with plywood, though a section of the fence behind the gym had been cut open long ago. We'd seen videos online of people exploring it, but none of them stayed long. There were rumors, satanic rituals, squatters, missing teens. It was all cliché, the kind of thing you hear about any abandoned school. We didn't believe any of it. We just wanted to paint something cool, record it, maybe post it later. It was close to midnight when we parked. The air was sharp and dry, and our breath came out like thin smoke. Frank had brought a bag of spray cans. Yuri carried a crowbar, just in case. Freddie, as always, was joking about ghosts before we even went in. He said it was bad luck to bring red paint. Frank ignored him. When we slipped through the fence, the world behind it felt sealed off. No wind, no highway noise, just silence so thick it pressed against your ears. The grass was wet and black, reflecting faint light from a distant street lamp. Every footstep made a soft crunch that sounded too loud. The door we found near the back, probably an old maintenance entrance, was unlocked. When Yuri pushed it open, the hinges gave a long, hollow groan, and something clattered deeper inside, like metal hitting tile. None of us said anything. Freddie switched on his flashlight and started recording. The inside smelled like dust and rusted metal. The air was colder there than outside. We walked through a short corridor lined with lockers that had been pried open years ago. The tiles on the floor were cracked, lifted in some places by roots growing underneath. Ceiling panels hung loose, wires drooping like vines. The beam of the flashlight cut through the dark, showing brief flashes of graffiti, mold, and peeling paint. Frank was the first to speak. "Smells like a dead animal," he said. "Or just the school cafeteria," Yuri muttered. We laughed, but it didn't feel right. The sound was too small, too thin. I remember thinking it was strange how every noise, every laugh, every scrape of a shoe seemed to bounce back slower than it should, like the building itself was swallowing sound. The deeper we went, the more it felt like the hallways rearranged themselves. Some doors were jammed shut, others led into rooms with broken desks, old textbooks, and piles of forgotten chairs. Everything was gray, muted, stripped of color except for the graffiti, which glowed faintly under the flashlight's beam. Names, dates, strange symbols we couldn't recognize. At one point, Freddie whispered, "Why does it feel like someone's still here?" No one answered. We didn't want to. By the time we reached the stairwell, the battery icon on the GoPro was already flashing red. Yuri said we should check the basement first. Frank disagreed. But we followed Yuri anyway. He liked to lead, and none of us wanted to argue. I remember one last thing before we went down. The way the light from Freddie's flashlight caught something on the second-floor landing. A faint shimmer, like glass catching moonlight. But when I turned to look again, it was gone. We went down the stairs, and that's where the silence began to sound alive. The strange event. The basement was colder than the rest of the building. Moisture clung to the air, and each breath felt heavier, slower. The light from Freddy's flashlight hit the floor and shimmered off a thin layer of water. Somewhere, deep inside the pipes, something was dripping steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat muffled under concrete. There were classrooms down there too, though most had been gutted. The walls were stripped bare, exposing bricks and wires. Old posters still clung to a few spots, faded slogans about safety first and respect your classmates. The edges had melted into the wall, blackened by time. Frank kicked at a broken chair leg and muttered, "Why's it smell like paint?" Yuri raised his light toward the far end of the hallway. "That's not paint," he said. The floor there was darker, wet, glistening. We followed the line of his beam until it stopped. There, in the center of what must have once been a storage room, something had been drawn across the concrete. Thick lines, sharp angles, all converging into a circle about 10 feet wide. A pentagram. At first, I thought it was a prank. The paint still looked fresh, black, oily, and still damp. It glistened when the flashlight moved. But there were other things too. Candles, toppled and melted into thick puddles of wax. Empty soda cans, cigarette butts, and a torn piece of red fabric. Freddy gave a short laugh that didn't sound like a laugh. "Okay? Nope. I'm good," he said, turning to leave. Yuri stopped him. "Relax. It's just kids screwing around." He said it, but his voice was too tight. Frank crouched by the edge of the symbol, his breath forming a cloud. "This is new," he said. "You can still smell the thinner." I crouched next to him. The surface shimmered faintly. The lines weren't even it looked like whoever painted it had done it in a hurry, maybe with shaking hands. And in the center of the pentagram, the floor was scorched, blackened in a perfect circle. Yuri whispered something in Russian under his breath, then said, "Let's head upstairs. We'll do our stuff there." Freddy agreed immediately. None of us wanted to stay longer than we had to. We climbed the stairs again. The flashlight beam bounced off the cracked walls. The deeper we went, the more it felt like something had shifted in the building. It wasn't just the sound anymore, it was the air. Still, heavy, expectant. The second floor smelled like dust and rainwater. A row of lockers leaned sideways, their doors hanging open like gaping mouths. Frank picked one of the cleaner walls and started shaking his spray can. The sound ch-ch-ch-ch echoed through the hall like something mechanical breathing. Yuri and Freddy said they wanted to check the roof for a better spot to tag. "Don't split up," I said, half joking, but they were already walking down the hall. Frank grinned and said, "Come on, man. What's the worst that could happen?" I stayed with him, filming as he sprayed his tag, a thick red curve that bled across the gray wall. The smell of aerosol filled the air. It should have felt normal. But every few seconds, I'd catch movement out of the corner of my eye, like something flickered just behind the lockers. Every time I turned, it was gone. After about 20 minutes, Frank dropped his empty can and reached for another. "Where's my bag?" he said. It had been right next to him, zipped shut. Now it was gone. We both looked around, confused. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. He thought maybe Yuri or Freddy had taken it to mess with him. "Freddy!" Frank shouted. His voice bounced through the hallways, echoed, and didn't come back right. It sounded distorted, stretched. He frowned. "That's not funny." Nothing answered. We decided to check the nearby rooms. The first two were empty old classrooms, stripped of everything but desks and dust. The third one smelled faintly of spray paint. That's when I saw it. Frank's bag sat in the corner, half unzipped. Next to it, on the cracked tile, something had been painted. A second pentagram. This one was smaller, maybe 4 feet across, but the paint was still dripping, forming tiny black puddles that spread slowly outward. It hadn't been there before. The paint was still wet, and no one else was around. Frank froze. His mouth hung open. "How?" he began, but didn't finish. I backed away, the GoPro still recording. The lens caught the light reflecting off the fresh lines. It wasn't perfect like the one downstairs. It looked rushed, angry, like someone had scrawled it fast, just to mark something. In the center, there was a small hole in the floor. Not drilled, not broken, just a gap. Dark and round, leading into nothing. Frank whispered, "Let's go find Yuri." When we stepped back into the hallway, the silence was gone. We heard footsteps, not ours. Soft, quick, somewhere down the hall like bare feet on tile. Frank looked at me. I didn't even breathe. The flashlight flickered once, then again, before dying. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of our breathing in the dark. Then, from somewhere behind us, a slow, deliberate tapping began, like fingernails on glass. Development. The tapping stopped the moment I turned toward it. Just silence again, thick, endless, swallowing everything. Frank clicked the flashlight a few times until it came back on, dim but alive. The beam cut through the hallway and revealed only dust floating in the air. No movement, no one there. We both started walking faster, trying to find Yuri and Freddy. The hallways seemed different now, shorter in some places, longer in others. Like the angles of the building had shifted. Even the graffiti looked different, stretched and distorted under the light. We passed a door that had been cracked open. Something faint glimmered on the metal handle wetness. I didn't want to look closer. At the end of the hall, stairs led back down. That's when we heard voices. Low, hurried then laughter. Yuri's voice, definitely Yuri's, echoing from below. "Yuri!" Frank shouted. "You guys down there?" No answer, just the echo. We went down anyway, even though I didn't want to. The steps creaked, and the flashlight's beam shook over the walls. When we reached the basement again, the smell hit first metallic, like rust or blood, mixed with something chemical. The pentagram was still there, but the candles that had been scattered before were now standing upright, arranged neatly along the outer circle. Each one had a tiny black wick, but none were lit. Frank swore under his breath. "This isn't funny anymore," he said, his voice too loud. "Where the hell are they?" A sound came from the far room, something small falling, the echo of a tin can rolling. Frank raised the light, his hand shaking slightly. The beam passed over broken shelves, then the far wall, then a shape. A bag. Freddy's backpack, lying halfway open. And just beyond it, footprints. Bare footprints in the dust, small and uneven, leading toward the boiler room. Frank looked at me. "We need to get them and leave." I nodded. My throat was too dry to speak. The boiler room door was heavy, rusted. It groaned when Frank pushed it open. The smell inside was unbearable, wet concrete, mold, something else underneath. The walls were covered with dark stains, and along the back wall, pipes hissed softly like something breathing. The flashlight caught something hanging from one of the pipes, a piece of cloth, red, torn, fluttering slightly. Frank whispered, "That's from Yuri's jacket." He was right. Yuri had been wearing a red windbreaker earlier. The moment he said that, we both froze. From somewhere in the dark, just behind the boiler, came the sound of something scraping slowly across metal. A sharp, dragging noise, followed by a breath. Not ours. Frank turned off the light, and we stood there, paralyzed. The noise stopped too. The air felt heavy, pressing against our skin. I could feel my pulse in my throat, in my hands. Every second stretched longer than it should. Then, a whisper. Right behind us. It wasn't clear, not in words, more like air being shaped into sound. A hiss, then a syllable, then two. I couldn't tell what it said, but I remember the feeling of it against my ear. Cold, wet. Frank turned the flashlight back on. Nothing. Just the old pipes and stains. We bolted out of the room and ran up the stairs, our footsteps echoing wildly. When we reached the second floor again, Yuri and Freddie were there standing halfway down the hall, waving their arms. "Run!" Yuri shouted. "Just run!" Their faces were pale, eyes wide. They didn't wait for us to ask questions. We just ran. We tore through the hallways, past classrooms and broken doors, turning corners blindly. I didn't know where we were going anymore. Everything looked the same. Our footsteps echoed, overlapping like the sound was chasing itself. Then we heard it again, that hissing sound. Sharp, steady, close. It wasn't just noise, it had intention. It came from somewhere behind us, following our rhythm, as if mimicking our breath. At first, it sounded like static, but then it shifted, almost like someone trying to imitate a cat, the way kids do when they mock the sound. Drawn out, too precise, too human. Freddie was ahead of us, flashlight shaking. "This way! This way!" We stumbled down a narrow corridor that ended at a wide hall we thought was the ground floor. The walls were covered with murals, old student artwork peeling away in strips. Our reflections warped faintly in the broken glass of a trophy case. Then we stopped. Something was standing at the far end of the hallway. A shape, dark and still, half hidden in shadow. Frank raised the flashlight. The beam hit the wall, flickered, then caught it. A figure in a long, dark cloak. For a second, it didn't move. Then its head tilted, slow, deliberate, like it was studying us. Behind it, two more shapes shifted in the dark. Freddie's voice cracked when he spoke. "There were three," he whispered. "Three of them." Yuri grabbed his arm. "Go!" We ran again. The hallway blurred, our steps echoing off tile and metal. Something fell behind us, a crash, then the sharp hiss again, louder now, closer. I turned once, just long enough to see a glimpse. A flash of movement, like fabric sweeping across the floor. Then a voice, deep, male, calm. "I should have cut you when I had the chance." It came from everywhere at once, from the walls, the ceiling, from inside my head. I didn't understand what it meant. I just ran. By the time we reached the door we'd come through, my chest was burning. Yuri shoved it open, and cold air flooded in. We stumbled through the fence, down the hill, and into the parking lot where the car waited. No one spoke until we were halfway down the road, headlights cutting through fog. Freddie was shaking. His voice came out thin, like paper tearing. "They were sitting in a circle," he said. "They had these glass things, like marbles or stones. They weren't talking, they were—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "When they saw us, they all stood up, at the same time, and they started coming toward us. No one said anything after that. The sound of the engine was the only thing keeping us tethered to the world. When I looked back, through the rear window, the school was just a shadow in the fog. But for a second, only a second, I thought I saw something move on the roof. A figure standing perfectly still, watching the road as we left. Climax. The video ends about 3 minutes after we reach the car. Everything after that, what we said, what we saw, wasn't recorded. Or at least, not by us. When the police found the GoPro weeks later, it still had half a charge. They never released the full footage, but a few clips leaked online before being taken down. You can still find fragments if you know where to look. A 30-second segment of flickering hallways, the sound of heavy breathing, and the faint hiss of something moving just outside the frame. That's what I watched, over and over, trying to make sense of what happened that night. In the footage, you can see us running down the stairwell. Freddy is ahead, his flashlight shaking wildly. Yuri's voice echoes. "This way, come on!" Frank's shouting something, but it's drowned out by static. Then, the frame glitches, the image warps, bends, and for a second, you can see something in the dark behind us. 3 figures, standing perfectly still. No faces, just hoods. Their outlines flicker, as if the camera can't decide whether they're there or not. Then the picture clears. The sound drops out entirely. Only the hiss remains. Not white noise, not wind. A deliberate, steady exhale like air forced through teeth. Almost rhythmic, almost human. The GoPro turns sharply, and the flashlight beam sweeps across the lockers. A reflection appears in one of them, a white blur that doesn't match any of us. It moves the wrong way, almost anticipating the turn before the camera makes it. And then, the deep voice. Low, distorted by the microphone. "I should have cut you when I had the chance." After that, the footage stops for 20 seconds black screen. Faint static hum. When it comes back, it's no longer the hallway. It's the basement again. The camera is lying on the floor, tilted sideways. The pentagram is back in frame, but it's not the same one we found. The lines are thicker, pulsing faintly under the dim light, as if wet. And in the corner of the shot, you can see part of someone's shoe. Frank's, maybe. A whisper overlaps the background noise. 1 voice, at first, then 2, then 3. It's not language, more like murmuring, words pressed too close together to separate. The voices keep rising and falling, sometimes matching each other, sometimes colliding. And underneath it, faint but clear, the sound of marbles rolling on concrete. The video cuts again. This next part, I've never been sure if it's real or a glitch. The frame flickers, and for half a second, there's a clear image. A circle of figures crouched on the floor, heads bowed. Between them, something shines small, round, scattering light like glass. Then the screen burns white. When it comes back, the camera's facing a wall. The light is swinging back and forth, casting long, thin shadows that stretch and contract like breathing. Someone's whispering my name, over and over. Not frantic, not screaming, just soft, coaxing. The final 10 seconds are almost silent, except for one faint sound, footsteps moving slowly away. Then, a single thump, something hitting the floor near the camera. It rolls a few inches. Just before the video ends, the beam catches the corner of a handprint on the wall. Dark, wet. The fingers are too long. After the police report came out, they said we must have imagined it. Trespassers, adrenaline, panic. They found nothing in the school. No evidence of anyone else being there. No candles, no pentagrams, not even our spray paint. They did find something else, though. About 2 weeks later, a maintenance worker reported new graffiti on the 2nd floor. The symbol was different this time. 3 overlapping circles, drawn in thick black paint. And below it, written in red, "I found you again." The handwriting wasn't ours. I still talk to Yuri sometimes. He doesn't like to mention that night. He moved to another state, works construction now, drinks more than he should. Freddy dropped out of school the following year. He told me once that he still dreams about the sound, the hiss. He said sometimes it comes from under his bed, soft enough that he's never sure it's real. Frank stopped answering messages after the footage surfaced. His parents filed a missing person report that summer. The car was still in his driveway, The black duffel bag, the one that held the GoPro, was gone. The police think he left on his own. But 2 nights before he disappeared, I got a text from him. Just 2 words. "It's back." No explanation. No follow-up. The next morning, his phone was turned off. A few months later, someone posted a clip on a small urban exploration forum. The title was simple: Maple Hill, 3 a.m. It was only 20 seconds long, shot from outside the fence. The building was dark, windows empty, the sky a dull orange from the city glow. Nothing moved at first. Then, in one of the second-floor windows, just for a moment, you could see light flicker inside. A faint red glow, like from a spray can's nozzle. Then the light went out. The video ended with the sound of something breathing into the microphone. And a whisper, faint, but unmistakable. "I should have cut you." Then static. Consequences. The official statement listed it as trespassing and property damage, Maple Hill Middle School, North Jersey. Date: the 12th of March, 2018. 4 subjects. 3 identified. 1 missing. No charges were ever filed. The footage wasn't admissible as evidence. It was inconclusive, according to the county's public report. But the building was finally condemned that same year. Within a month, it was fenced off again, this time properly, and sealed with police tape. By fall, demolition began. They only finished half of it. Construction crews refused to go back after several incidents. The first was small equipment malfunction, electrical surges. Then came the noises. Footsteps in empty rooms, voices through the intercom system, even though it had been disconnected years ago. Finally, one morning, a worker found something drawn across a slab of fresh concrete poured overnight. A circle with intersecting lines, still wet and black. There were no footprints nearby. After that, the site was abandoned again. I was interviewed 3 times, once by local police, once by an independent journalist, and once by someone from a YouTube channel that wanted to cover the paranormal angle. They all asked the same questions. Why did we go there? What did we see? Where did Frank go? Every time, I gave the same answers. Curiosity. Nothing clear. I don't know. But it's the last question that stays with me. Not where he went, but when. Because the footage ends at 11:59 p.m., and I remember all 4 of us running out together, Frank right behind me. He got into the back seat of the car. I saw him shut the door. But when we stopped for gas 20 minutes later, the seat was empty. No sound, no door opening, nothing. Just gone. Yuri swore he'd seen him in the mirror during the drive, sitting still, staring out the window. Freddie said he didn't. They argued for days about it afterward, until they stopped talking entirely. When the police searched the area, they found no tracks, no sign of forced entry, no sign anyone had gone back. Only one thing stood out. The car's rear window had a streak across it, 5 lines, long and thin, like someone had dragged wet paint from the inside. The residue tested negative for any known chemical. 2 years later, in 2020, a Reddit thread appeared in a small Urbex community. The post title was simple: something new at Maple Hill. The user uploaded 5 photographs taken through the fence before demolition began again. Most of them showed nothing, just the usual decay and rubble. But the 3rd photo had something strange. At the top of a half-collapsed stairwell, a message was scrawled in red. "Cut deep enough and you'll hear them." The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Frank had a habit of writing in all caps when tagging walls, pressing the paint down too hard. It looked exactly like his. The user deleted their account within an hour of posting. The thread was locked by moderators for disturbing content. I didn't go back to see it. Yuri begged me not to. Freddie sent me a message last year saying he was having dreams again of the basement, of the whispering. He said sometimes it feels like someone's breathing into his ear while he sleeps. When he wakes up, he finds small, wet circles on the floor beside his bed, like marbles. I told him to throw them away if he ever finds one. He never replied. I've stopped trying to convince myself that it was just panic or shared hallucination. There are too many small things that don't fit, like how the GoPro timestamp resets to 0 hours halfway through the recording, or how the final frame, when brightened, shows faint outlines on the floor like 3 figures standing just outside the camera's view, and how the audio spectrogram, when analyzed, forms a rough shape of a circle. Every piece of evidence points back to that one night, that one building, and still, no one believes it happened. The official line is simple: urban legends, kids trespassing. But the people who've been there, they don't argue. They just look away, like they don't want to remember. Sometimes, at night, I hear the sound again. Not in dreams, in the walls. A slow, steady hiss, like someone trying to mimic a cat. It's been years since that night. Most days, it feels like something that happened to someone else, like watching an old tape you barely remember recording. But sometimes, when I wake up in the dark and the air feels too still, I can almost smell the paint again. The demolition crews finished tearing down Maple Hill Middle School in late 2021. The site is empty now, just flattened earth behind a chain-link fence. They plan to build a warehouse there someday, though no company has followed through. The soil keeps sinking, they say. The foundation doesn't hold. A few months ago, I drove by the area. It was late, fog rolling low across the street. The fence was still there, glinting faintly under the streetlights. I stopped the car for a moment, just to look. It felt wrong, too quiet, too deliberate, like the whole world was holding its breath. In the center of the field, where the school used to stand, something caught the light, a shimmer. I thought it was glass at first, but when I looked closer, I saw that it wasn't reflecting light, it was giving it off. A faint red glow, pulsing slowly under the dirt. I told myself it was just leftover wiring, or maybe a trick of the eyes. But when I blinked, it moved, like something alive, buried, turning over once. Then it went dark. I didn't get out of the car. When I drove away, the rearview mirror caught something small, a figure standing near the fence. Not close, not clear, just there. The shape didn't move, even as the car did. The last thing I remember before turning the corner was the faint sound of something tapping against the glass. It came from the back seat. A week later, I found a box on my porch. No label, no return address. Inside was a single GoPro battery, same make, same model as ours, wrapped in a piece of torn fabric. Red. There was something written on the plastic in permanent marker. The letters were smeared, but I could still read them. March 12, 11:47 p.m. The exact timestamp of our recording. I don't know who sent it, or how they found my address. I didn't keep the battery. I threw it away that same night. But sometimes, when I check my computer, I see a folder appear for a second on the desktop, then vanish. The name of the folder never changes. Maple Hill. And under it always, the same single file. Rec. 1. It's dated tomorrow.